Hi there. Today we're going to learn about slime. You see slime in movies and it seems ooey gooey. Sometimes it seems like it's something a monster makes to trap its victims. Slime can occur naturally in the environment around you, but today we're going to create a very easy type, but it's actually called a non-Newtonian fluid, and we'll discuss what that means. From your kit, you simply need your cornstarch, and if you want to create a larger amount, you can buy cornstarch at the grocery store in a big box. You can also use food coloring from home if you want. I'm just going to keep mine white. And you're going to need water, at least a cup or so, and something to mix it in, probably a bowl. And this takes practice to make this non-Newtonian fluid. When I was in school, we called this oobleck in science class from a Dr. Seuss book. You have to get the ratio right in order for this to work. Otherwise, it's a little too liquid, it's a little too lumpy. Just mix it. You can use your measuring spoon, but I'm going to measure out about half of my bag into the bowl. Yeah. And then I'm simply going to begin to pour water onto it, just a little at a time. It doesn't take a lot. And just take note of what happens. The lumps of the cornstarch immediately begin to dissolve. I'm going to swish it around. It's a little bit easier than trying to mix it, and it already begins to look very milky. So you still see some dry lumps, but swish it around to kind of get those dry lumps. You can go ahead and use your finger, and when you do, you'll notice a very strange consistency. It looks like milk. It looks very, very liquid. When you move it around, it sloshes pretty easily. You can still see there's some clumps at the bottom. Use your finger and kind of break those up. But, ooh, let me mix it. Oh, this is so fun. Mix it up pretty good. But you'll notice that the more you mix it, the more it starts to behave a little bit differently than what you would expect. And it's important to get the cornstarch and water ratio right. Okay. So what I'm doing here is it feels pretty much mixed, but then I put my finger in it and then it doesn't. And what's happening here is if you take your finger and you directly hit it, it feels like you're hitting a solid, and then it turns into a liquid. It almost feels like it melts under your finger. When you pull it up using your fingers, it drips down easily enough, but if you try and grab it, you can definitely feel a solid that kind of disappears as you do. So I'm going to add a little bit more cornstarch. Just a little, mix it in, and notice, suddenly I am able to grab a liquid, at least for a moment. You can grab it, and if you squeeze it between your hands, for a second, you can see that it's a solid, and then it melts in your hands. Very, very, very messy. But if you use your fingers like a little trampoline and try and jump on it, it's not as if you put your fingers in milk. It hits something very solid. And like I said before, this is a non-Newtonian fluid. It has the properties of a liquid and a solid at the same time. And there are lots of different experiments you can do with this. Put plastic over a very loud bass loudspeaker, and then put this non-Newtonian fluid on top, and the vibrations bounce it around and it creates like a living shape. It looks very cool. You can try different things in different ratios, add different colors, but what's also fun is that it's a liquid you can, at least for a moment, scoop up, and then with pressure it turns into a solid again for just a moment, and then it melts again into your hand. So if I squeeze it, it's solid, then very quickly it's not. And you're going to have a lot of fun with this. It is messy, but it's not at all dangerous. Feel free to add different colors, see what happens if you add salt, for example, or borax. There's a lot of different possibilities, but nothing works quite as well as simply water. I'm going to be enjoying this for a while. Hi there. Another way to have fun with slime, a non-Newtonian fluids, is to create a little stress ball. What I've done is I've taken a balloon and a funnel that I had at home, and I've taken the non-Newtonian fluid that I've created, and I'm going to pour it in and fill my little balloon with it. And we know from our previous experiment that a non-Newtonian fluid is a substance that has the properties of both a solid and a liquid at the same time. And when you mess around with it, at one moment it might feel like a liquid, and then at the other moment it might feel just like a solid. So I'm pouring the leftovers of my experiment into the balloon, and then I'm going to make a little bit more. You don't need to fill the balloon big or anything like that, just to a good size that it can easily fit in your hand. I can already feel it's really fun. And it will behave the same way as it does in the bowl when you play with it with your hands, but then it won't be so messy. The cornstarch won't dry onto your hands. So let me set that there. I need to make a little bit more. Add my cornstarch. And then, as we did before, we're only going to add a little bit of water at a time because we want to make sure that the ratio is right. I've had a lot of experiments with this over the years, so I'm pretty good at getting it right. And if you add it a little bit at a time anyway, you can see how the powder reacts, the cornstarch powder reacts to the water, and how it just is a solid, then immediately, so it's a solid, and then it immediately turns into a liquid and melts in your hand. So I'm going to add just a little more water because I want it to be able to flow down my funnel into my balloon. Yeah, like that. All right. Okay. Pour it in little by little. This is a very messy but very addictive experiment. So my balloon says, I don't want to expand anymore, but balloons, they're good at expanding. So I'm just going to stretch out my balloon a little bit, though I wish I had 3 hands, so that it will fit more of the fluid inside. It might have helped if I had blown it up first, and then it would have been a little bit easier to fill. There we go, I just lift up the funnel a little bit. It wants to escape out the sides. It doesn't matter, like I said, it just needs to be able to be held in your hand. And I have very little hands, so that's probably good enough. The rest there. Then tie it off, and then I'll need to wash it off. And I have myself a little stress bag. And if you do it right and have enough cornstarch in it, you can mix it up, it'll react in a very fun way. You can squeeze it and it feels like it melts, but without the risk of it popping. And it's also very safe because if something does happen and it breaks, it's not any sort of dangerous substance, but you can squeeze it and it works better than a fidget spinner. It's really fun. And make sure you don't have any extra air trapped inside. Mine's a little bit more liquid than I like, but I can feel the clumps of cornstarch in it. So I might, in my next attempt, add a little bit more cornstarch to it, but it works just fine. I'll see you next time.